Okay, let's talk characters. Characters have various roles in a story. There's the protagonist, often the hero, the main character that the story revolves around. At the bottom of the character pole, you have the tertiary character, a character who appears in one or two scenes for a specific, limited purpose. In this video, I will be comparing Kemen from Rings of Power to Syril Karn from Andor. Now, what do these characters have in common? They are both told by an authoritative figure who has a logical reason why the best course of action is A. Do nothing. But both are dissatisfied with the explanation given to them and decide to go with B. Do something about it. However, Syril Karn, while a secondary character, is an actual character. His actions have consequences, not only for himself, but those around him, who are unwittingly pulled into his decision to disobey orders. While Kemen, I hesitate to even label a tertiary character, as his actions serve no purpose to the story. He suffers no consequences, nor does anyone else. In fact, the only person affected by Kemen going against what Pharazôn wants is Isildur, who could have achieved his goal by any number of means, but more on that later. Be advised, this video will contain spoilers for both shows. Let's start with Rings of Power, as I saw that first. So, the Númenóreans are going to raise an army to sail with Galadriel, an elf, to the Southlands and stop the Southlanders from being slaughtered by a great host of orcs. Kemen dislikes the elves and doesn't think this is a good idea. He is encouraged by his romantic interest, Éarien, to persuade his father, Prime Minister Pharazôn, to stop the Númenóreans going to war. Pharazôn patiently explains to Kemen why he's supporting Queen Regent Miria's decision to aid Galadriel in her quest. Putting the supposed heir of the Southlands on the throne would beholden Halbrand and his people to Númenor, which would open up trade and commerce with the Southlanders, filling Númenor's coffers with riches. Makes sense, right? Since Númenor is an island, eventually its resources would start to dwindle without trade from other areas. But Kemen doesn't like this reasoning, and instead, he sneaks onto one of the ships to set it on fire. In Andor, 2 Pre-Mor security guards are killed by person or persons unknown. Deputy Inspector Syril Karn reports the incident to Chief Hyne, and is ready to investigate and bring the murderer to justice. He is confounded when Chief Hyne doesn't want him to investigate. In fact, his commanding officer wants Syril to bury the report by making it look mundane, a sad event that happened but all in the line of duty, nothing out of the ordinary. Chief Hyne explains that opening an investigation, questioning people, and hunting down the murderer would bring the eye of the Empire down on their sector, because the 2 guards were in a place that shouldn't be opened, spending credits they shouldn't have, and drinking liquor that Pre-Mor shouldn't be allowing businesses to sell. By keeping the Empire's eye away, Pre-Mor security, and by consequence other people, can be freer to go about their lives as they are. Dissatisfied with this explanation, Syril takes it upon himself to investigate their murders while Chief Hyne is away, following any clue without anyone at Pre-Mor knowing he is acting against orders. Upon finding where Cassian Andor lives, Syril authorizes a team to be deployed, even joining it, though from his nervousness and lack of knowledge implies he has no field experience. Now, how is the story or other characters affected by Kemen and Syril going against what Pharazôn and Hyne tell them? Well, in Kemen's case, the story is not affected at all, and the only character affected by it, as I said previously, is Isildur. So Isildur wanted to join the volunteer army, but his dad said no, because Isildur isn't mature enough. And asking his friend, who is a lieutenant, to let him join also failed. So Isildur sneaks on board one of the 5 ships destined to sail the army to Middle-earth. And this ship just happens to be the same one that Kemen sneaks onto. Kemen goes down into the hold and busts open a barrel of oil. I think it's oil. It's never explained what this is. Later on, Isildur says a cask must have gone up, but it's not explained why the Númenóreans had a hold filled with these casks, nor are they used at all when the Númenóreans go to the Southlands. It's almost as if there needed to be a flammable, exploding thingy on board for Kemen to set on fire. So Kemen is about to set this stuff on fire when he hears a cough, and investigating, he finds Isildur trying to be a stowaway. And Isildur rightly deduces that Kemen is up to no good. He tries to stop Kemen, but during the struggle the lantern is dropped, and the oil catches fire. Isildur and Kemen make a mad dash to get off the boat, but Kemen is knocked out, so Isil saves him. When Elendil questions what happened, Isildur lies for some reason. Kemen says Isildur saved him, and the scene cuts to Elendil telling Muriel that 2 ships burned and possibly a passing brigand is responsible. No investigation is made into why Kemen and Isildur were there, because that scene isn't important anymore. It's done. We're moving on. Galadriel says we still have 3 ships, and they sail. Now, remember, I said Isildur was the only person affected, and that's because he goes from not being able to join the army to suddenly boarding a ship in full armor. Why? Could it be because he saved Kemen and that somehow showed his father he was worthy of joining the army? No idea. None of that is even mentioned. So instead of a character-defining moment for Isildur, where he could have done a noteworthy deed that would have had several witnesses in order to earn a place in the army, he saves an arsonist who was going to destroy his ticket off the island. Lies very obviously and seemingly gets rewarded for it by being given what he wanted. There are no consequences for the arson, and the 2 burnt ships are dismissed from memory as they still have 3, so let's squeeze all 500 men, horses, and supplies on these ships. Even though in episode 8, the harbor is shown to be full of ships. So Kemen would have had to burn the whole fleet down in order to stop the army from leaving. Maybe he should have conscripted some help from the others that he mentions to Éarien who think as she does. Kemen avoids all suspicion, thanks to Isildur's lie, which has more holes than a donut, but Elendil eats it anyway. And why does Isildur lie to protect the man who could have killed him had he not coughed and alerted arsonist Kemen that he was on board? If there was a chance he knew Kemen was his sister's romantic interest, maybe it would make sense to lie. But again, nothing is said by Éarien, Kemen, or Isildur to show that Kemen and Isil are aware of who the other is in regards to Éarien. You could take out the burnt ship's plot point. In fact, you could take out Kemen altogether and nothing would change. That's how little impact he has on the story or the other characters. This is why I hesitate in even labeling him a tertiary character, because even though he appears in several scenes, has dialogue or romantic interest, and commits arson, none of it affects the story or other characters. He is so forgettable that when I asked the group what they thought of him, the majority of responses were incredulous that he even had a name, or were asking who I was talking about, even though I provided a picture. Kemen is a bad character, and not in the sense that he's evil, but because he gets the spotlight in several scenes, and yet none of it matters. His romance with Éarien mostly takes place off-screen. He goes from meeting her at the protest in the square, bumping into her when she was neglecting her apprenticeship duties, and then off-screen has dinner with her, and a week later he's apologizing for not seeing her because he's been very busy. Their romance is little more than a footnote at the bottom of the page. By the way, Kemen likes Éarien and listens to her advice to speak louder to his father. He dislikes elves. Well, no idea why. Presumably for the same reason that nearly everyone on the island does, but that's never stated, though people are afraid of elves coming to take their jobs. Kemen's actions serve no purpose, other than distracting the audience from realizing they are not watching a Silmarillion adaptation. On the other side, Syril's actions very much not only affect himself, but many others, to the point that if you took him out of the story, you would have to rewrite episodes 1 through 3, which would change Cassian Andor's urgency to leave home and his motivation for joining Luthen Raoul. Here's why. Syril, upon discovering that the murdered security guards harassed a Qatari male, puts out a bulletin in Andor, suspecting Primor will come looking for him, sets about trying to raise enough credits to leave, but also take care of his adopted mother. The more people asking questions about what happened, thanks to the bulletin, the more anxious he gets to leave. Syril, upon receiving a tip on Andor's location, mobilizes a team, his inexperience blatantly obvious, when the sergeant hands over the team to him to give an inspirational speech to, and his speech would move you to tears, just, oh, you sweet summer child, you need some speech lessons. And once on the ground, he is very clearly following the sergeant's lead, as once the townspeople start tapping every echoey surface, he has no idea what's going on. And when Andor has him at gunpoint, Syril is so scared he answers truthfully how many men were brought to find Cassian. And by this point, some of those men are dead already, and more die as Syril falls for the distraction, and the townspeople retaliate by sabotaging their landing craft, thanks to Andor's mom getting harassed and this poor guy getting shot down in cold blood. Yeah, he betrayed Andor, but he tried to help Bix when these guys were harassing her. He didn't deserve to die like that. The look on Syril's face as he observes the destruction, the deaths and wounded, he's unable to move, and the sergeant has to pull him away. He knows there is no bearing this failed mission, and he knows his career is over. Not only does the Empire's eye fall on their sector, but also the Empire's wrath at how badly this botched mission went. Primor is disbanded, Syril is disgraced, and he and Chief Hyde are demoted. The townsfolk have to flee their homes, knowing the Empire will be coming after them. Syril goes home to his mother, without a job, and she is one verbally abusive woman, let me tell you. The way she constantly needles him about everything, even custom tailoring his uniform, is grating to watch, and the look on Cyril's face clearly says that something needs to change or he is going to snap. Cyril's story does not end here. Though his presence drops a bit in the following episodes, he does get a second chance to redeem himself, and he is similar to Wayun's character in Deep Space Nine. You just get the feeling he's going to be a thorn in Andor's side. I actually was more intrigued by Cyril's character than Andor, and wanted to see where he was going rather than what Andor was up to. Now, that is a sign of a good character. A character who, while he isn't the main character, has the audience's attention on and off the screen. I definitely didn't ask myself who Syril was when I next saw him again, unlike Kemen, whose name I completely forgot when I did my deathbed scene comparison video. Syril is the kind of character I can get invested in, whether it be in a book, TV show, movie, or video game. A character who has clear motivations, has more than one emotion, and isn't one-dimensional. There are layers to him that can be explored, that trigger the imagination to think about, whereas Kemen, well, Kemen could have had potential, but like many of the characters in Rings of Power, because there are so many characters and not enough time devoted to them all to properly flesh them out, Kemen becomes one of the many who is there and gone. But worse in the fact that because he takes center stage, there should be more to him, and yet, there isn't. Thanks for joining me. If you watched Rings of Power or Andor, what did you think of Kemen and Syril? What did you think of the first season of either show? I'll see you in the comments. Have a great day, and I'll catch you all next time. Farewell.